So I am Serene Greenway. I am a family and consumer sciences extension educator over in Owyhee County. So here in Marsing, Idaho. I apologize every time I go to share this presentation, it skips to the very end, and you better believe we are just getting started here. So this is week 1. Let's make elephant fit toothpaste. And I really want to give a shout out to Maddie Anderson. She is the University of Idaho, Owyhee County Extension Office's 4-H program coordinator. And Maddie prepared today's presentation. Unfortunately, she is not able to be here. So super appreciate her putting together this fun and a little bit messy activity for us today and lesson. And I'm hoping it's a great opportunity for all of us. And then just again, I'm Serene Greenway. I am a family and consumer sciences extension educator here in Owyhee County. And when we switch to our activity, you'll all have the opportunity to meet my friend Jordan. So just to get us started, we really hope that as you are joining us in our University of Idaho Extension program today, we hope that you're aware of all of the opportunities that you can receive through University of Idaho Extension. So we are located in 42 of the 44 counties in Idaho. And with that, we really hope that you consider some of the programming that we offer. I shared with you that Maddie is the 4-H program coordinator in Owyhee County, and I'm FCS. So there are 2 different program areas, but across the state, we also have food production systems, 4-H youth development, as I mentioned, horticulture and small farms. Any of you backyard gardeners, that is some great programming that you can access there. We also have community development, nutrition, diet, health, and wellness. That also encompasses some financial management. So maybe you're looking for some of those basic financial classes. And then we have forestry and natural resources and water. So if you are not familiar with extension, please check us out. Every office has different emphases with their programming and different even programs within those regions and areas of the state. So really consider those and what is available for you. And as we go to that, I want to show you a quick video on some of the things that we offer.
University of Idaho Extension is growing Idaho's economy by improving sustainable food production systems while supporting ranchers and farmers. From livestock and forages to pest and disease management, variety development, small farms and food systems, and farm and ranch management, UI Extension is helping to build a better future.
And so with that just gives you a brief introduction to some of the areas that we serve. So I haven't even introduced my co-speaker with me today, my chat helper, Joel Packham. He is an ag educator located in the central region with University of Idaho Extension in Cashta County. But just to give you a highlight on Maddie, who prepared today's presentation for us, as I shared, she is our 4-H youth development coordinator in our office, serving specifically youth ages 5 to 18, but she also does much more than that. She works with a lot of adults in our county, both training and supporting our volunteers, which make our 4-H youth development program have the capacity and the capability that it does so that we can serve all of the youth in our counties. In addition to that, Maddie does work with club and in-school and after-school and day camp programming. So in your local region, you may find that your 4-H youth development programs are offering a lot of the same opportunities, maybe different topics as we are having in our own, especially now that we're on summer break for a lot of us. A lot of the emphasis that Maddie has in her role and a lot of her expertise lies in plants and animals, so livestock, a lot of breeding projects, horse. And so with that, she brings a lot of childhood experiences as well as her expertise from her bachelor's. And so I think that's extremely important to note because she also has some emphasis in communications and expressive arts, public speaking, leather craft, photography. She is a phenomenal artist. And then some environmental education, including shooting sports. And so while that's a little in a nutshell info about Maddie, today's presentation is really not even in her major expertise area, and it encompasses STEM, so science, technology, all engineering and mathematics, all of those pieces. And so we've got a really fun one. And I shared with you that in a little bit, you'll be able to meet my friend Jordan, who is going to walk us through the activity. I hope that in preparation for the You and I Together lesson today, you all received an email, but you also should have received the handout, which is a recipe to make elephant toothpaste. So while we have that opportunity to make something fun and super duper messy, we'll show you in a minute a little bit of a mess going on in our office right now. But with that, there is going to be a lot of discussion on what is actually occurring. Yes, some mess and some fun, but what is that is truly taking place? And so I'm hoping that after today's lesson, you'll have an idea of some of the key concepts and terms, how they relate to some of the activities or actions that are occurring. You will hopefully already have the recipe that identifies the materials and the ingredients that you need, as well as the procedure to do this specific recipe of elephant toothpaste. But really, we're going to be diving in of why does this work? Why does this reaction, this STEM activity take place and function the way that it does? And we might even be able to have some guesses, maybe even some pre-recipe hypotheses. So we'll have to see. But with that, let's start with some of the key.
Do you mind if I pause you for just a second while we launch a poll?
Oh, fun. Thank you, Amy. That'd be super fun. Can you tell us what that poll will entail, Amy?
This poll is just going to have some questions. If you could answer, I'm launching it right now. So if you can click on how many adults are attending the program where you are located, how many youth are attending the program. And then also we'd like to know, is this your first time participating in a University of Idaho Extension class, workshop, activity? And then is this your first time in the You and I Together series? So maybe you've taken other classes from us, but you haven't done You and I Together yet. So if you could just answer each of these questions, we'll take a minute or so until we get most of the people responding.
Super appreciate that, Amy. This poll is super fun to see. Yeah. Who is, as we asked you in the chat, as we got started, where you're joining from, that's fun, but it's also fun to know who's joining at your location. Sometimes you're one login on the Zoom meeting, but there may be several of you joining. So it's great to see that.
All right, I'm going to give, oh, never mind. The poll is ended. So, all right, with that, Serene, would you like me to share the results quickly or just move along?
It's so fun to know who's all in the room with us today.
All right, so we've got several locations with some adults. We've got locations with different numbers of children. Some of you, this is your first time with University of Idaho Extension, so welcome. We're excited to see you. And then some of you, this is your first You and I Together series, so we hope to see you at many more in the future.
Yes, I echo exactly what Amy said, but Amy, thank you so much for sharing that poll, and thank you all for participating in that. And so now that we know who's with us, and that for some of you, this may be your first You and I Together, I'm hoping it's the best one yet. But as we're talking specifically about elephant toothpaste, I think it's really important to note some of the terms and concepts related to those terms and why those matter. So the first thing that we want to talk about is reaction. So truly, what is a reaction? It is a transformation or a change. Some of these may seem super basic, but we don't always consider them, especially in today's meeting, we have both youth and adults. And so sometimes it may become super obvious to us what a reaction is, but we may have a youth member that it can be a great opportunity for us to explain to them or have a conversation with them about that. And then the next piece is a physical reaction. So that is a substance changing size, shape, or color, but not changing in composition. And so again, that's specific to a physical reaction, which is specific in addition to a chemical reaction. So There's that difference in the key being that one is physical, one is chemical. So with a chemical reaction, a substance is changed to a new substance. So remember, physical reaction, it's going to still have that same composition, but with a chemical reaction, there will be that shape. And just to give some differences, so a physical reaction may be melting, freezing, steaming, boiling, dissolving, mixing, cutting, breaking, or crushing. So there's a lot of different physical reactions that we may conduct ourselves or that we may view on a regular daily basis, perhaps. And then a chemical reaction, and that is rusting, burning, cooking, rotting, or metabolizing food. So some of those things we don't necessarily see, but they're still occurring. And so when we talk about elephant toothpaste today, we are really going to be focusing on a chemical reaction. And so does anyone off the bat, can you think of any reactions that I didn't kind of give you examples for those chemical or those physical ones? There were quite a few, so hopefully we got the majority of them. But lastly, as I shared with you that today we're focusing on that chemical reaction, I really want to emphasize the term catalyst. So catalyst is a substance that changes how fast a chemical reaction happens. So remember, I just told you that today we're going to be focusing on those chemical reactions, and catalyst is telling us, oh, it's going to help control how that occurs. So there's a little hint as we are going to transition to what we're making in a moment. So every single one of you should have received elephant toothpaste recipe. This was a handout that was attached to an email that you received from registering for this program. In our excitement for today, you may have received one that has a typo or two. We have since caught these. I'm just so excited to make this chemical reaction happen with all of you today. But for the elephant toothpaste recipe, you have this up on your screen, but in a moment, we're actually going to shift, and I'm going to introduce you all to my friend Jordan, who's here with me live in our room, so that he can conduct this recipe for you today. But please note that you have this recipe, and dependent on where you are located in the state, some of you had the opportunity to register for supply kits through your local extension office. If that is the case, and you had that opportunity and you did register for a kit, your kit contains all of these ingredients necessary to make this elephant toothpaste. But with that, I'm now going to shift to my friend Jordan. And with this, he's got his goggles on already because his mother and I value safety. And so Jordan here is going to walk us through our recipe.
Okay. So first,
Yep, you're going to start us off. Yep, just like your recipe.
Okay, so you'll need a water bottle right here, this size, 16.9 fluid ounces. You'll need a square cup, can be red soil cup or a mini cup, etc., etc. And a funnel. 1/4 cup of dish soap right here. And 1/4 cup of dish soap here. 1 cup of hydro peroxide right here. Glitter, it's optional if you want it or not. Food coloring, we have different colors. 1 yeast of a tablespoon, but we're going to use 2. And then 3 tablespoons of warm water.
Right on. So for all of you, Jordan, I'll go grab it for you. Jordan has, as he showed you some of his ingredients, he has pre-measured some of these for you. So he's going to go ahead and start mixing some of those ingredients per the recipe.
Serene, would you be able to stop screen sharing so we can see a little better?
Thank you, Amy. We appreciate that. I switched cameras.
Oh, perfect.
So sorry about that, everyone. So here's my friend Jordan. He's shown you those ingredients. As I shared, he's pre-measured several of them, and now he's starting to follow the instructions on his recipe. He started with that hydrogen peroxide. He's now done his dish soap. What's that, Jordan?
Glitter.
So the glitter is optional, but of course we said yes. Then did you do your food coloring, Jordan?
And we're gonna use blue.
So Jordan chose that blue food coloring. He's now added that to his bottle. And according to that recipe, he's now going to put that lid on and shake that up a little bit. I'm hoping you can all capture in this video that we have, it looks yellow now, but Jordan pre-made this recipe. So for some fun, he practiced it. And you can actually see that we still have that previous recipe still occurring right here. So now that you are shaking that up, next up is adding your yeast in your warm water. And you do want that water to be warm. That is key to this recipe, to make that yeast function as that catalyst in this recipe. So now after that, you're going to get that warm water. And as he's getting that water, he's measuring those tablespoons. If you wanted to make this at home, could you eyeball it? Yes. I'd recommend trying it out first to see how it works for you according to the recipe. Chemical reactions can be fun, but maybe start with a guide. He's added that water to his yeast. He's now going to mix that up. He's going to make sure there's no lumps. And then he is going to make sure that he gets his funnel to pour that into his water bottle with those other ingredients as the recipe states. So you want to start pouring that in. So maybe just a little more water in this case, so it can be a little more pourable. So he's mixed that all up. He's got his cake pan or his covered area with that water bottle ready to go, because he knows it's going to be some messy fun coming up soon. Please note, if you are doing this at home, eye safety is important. So go ahead and just pop that in, Jordan, so you can scrape a little with that spoon. Right on. So if you are at home and you wear glasses, still recommend put those goggles on over them. So as you see, he's using his measuring cup and he is pouring that in. And as he's pouring it in, hopefully you can see it's already having a reaction occur. He didn't even get it all in there. And if he were to scrape, so do you want to hold up your measuring cup and show what's still remaining? So maybe a little difficult to tell, but there's still more yeast paste is what it essentially became, that's still stuck in the bottom. If he wanted to make it a little more pourable, want to try it out, Jordan? So making it a little more pourable, kind of, as you see, it's more a paste, a little bit of a paste. So sometimes playing with your yeast in your water can help with that. And as Jordan did this prior, he goes, oh, you can really smell that. Well, he could really smell that yeast, that key ingredient that is acting as a catalyst with this chemical reaction today. And so sometimes getting those chunks out are hard. That's why we did want to caution, this is a nice, fun mess, but you want to be properly prepared with your space. And one thing to note, so Jordan just added more, and so you can see it's not a huge tornado volcano explosion, right? But we can see that slow and steady that is taking place. With this, Jordan chose that blue, and so we are seeing, unfortunately, I can't go too far from our space with our current setup, but I'll pull this a little bit closer, Jordan. My friend here chose a great color to show you. You can actually see the differences in that blue and the yeasty white, if you will, if I can show a close-up. And so it may not be that explosion that we sometimes expect, right? Sometimes it's hard to make those work live and on time, but you can definitely see that occurring. And then if you see Jordan over there, that is an explosion or an already tested recipe that has continued to have that. What kind of reaction? What can we tell from that? It continued to have that. Was it a chemical reaction? So we're seeing that slow burn, if you will, right? And so with that, huge thank you to Jordan for helping us do this recipe today and for wearing his safety goggles, which we encourage you all to do. While there may not have been a volcano today, if you did have that, you would want to make sure that you are using those goggles for that safety. And so with that,
there's a question of why is it called elephant toothpaste?
A great question I don't know the answer to. So a frothy goodness that would be perfect toothpaste for an elephant, I would assume. I would have to look into that. I'm not familiar with the origin of this. I'm just familiar with the fun here that I've been having with Jordan and some fun we had last week when we were testing out this recipe. So great question there, though. So I'm going to transition back to sharing screen. I'm sorry if it wasn't the best view up at the top as Jordan started us off. Super appreciate him coming in here and testing this out. But I know that every time we make it, we want to try a little bit more of that catalyst. Remember, the yeast in this specific recipe is creating that catalyst for the chemical reaction to occur. And so by doing that, that's where a lot of times you can create a hypothesis. You know, what if I add more of this? What if I add less of this? And so we actually were testing recipes even last week because originally the recipe didn't function that we had. And so what can we do to change that up? How can we make that function correctly? And part of that is looking at your ratios and testing back and forth. And so while we have not a volcano in here with us today, which I'm grateful for, it's still super fun because I'm seeing this slow spread, and we've got paper towels on the table, and we're trying to stop the spread of this oozingness that we don't want on our floor today. But with that, remember the type of reaction that is occurring when it's being shaken is that physical reaction. It is a change, but it's not from one substance to another. However, when we are dissolving that yeast, which we did up the yeast a little bit. However, when we were mixing that yeast with that water, it was creating a paste. That too, that amount of time that you are mixing that, creating that paste, that can create an impact on your overall recipe. How will that ingredient act as that catalyst in the recipe? The other thing to think about, you know, what kind of reaction is causing that foam? Is that foam a physical or a chemical reaction as you're thinking about those key terms, and what is the concept behind them? Another thing is, Jordan, when you were shaking that bottle, was it warm?
Kind of.
So something that if you did not conduct this at your site where you are located today, maybe you weren't able to feel that, but there is warm water being added to that yeast. However, even that shaking is creating some heat in that, and you can feel that if you're doing it yourself, not necessarily through the screen today. And so what makes that bottle warm? You know, what is that having an impact through this reaction? Another thing to think about is, what does that foam feel like? foam is going to feel very different than our liquid water that we had, or even the liquid hydrogen peroxide that we started with. So very different substances when we talk about this reaction. And the other thing that we should be considering is, why does it foam? And so some of these pieces to note is that with chemical reactions, hydrogen peroxide is an oxidizer. What does that mean? That's just a big word. Well, it means that it converts to water and oxygen slowly over time. So it is a chemical reaction, a chemical change when we look at those definitions. And what that does is it creates a small amount of heat, and that's called an exothermic reaction. So that heat, so remember, Jordan was using warm water, but as those two are being mixed and shaken, that's where some of that additional heat is coming in. So adding a catalyst in this recipe, that yeast, that mixture of yeast, the water and the yeast, which is also exothermic and warm, we are speeding up the reaction. And so the soap acts as a surfactant. And what that means is it allows the yeast to interact with more of the hydrogen peroxide, causing that foam to occur. So the bubbles that we have when we're doing dishes, similar, but it's just on a foamier aspect here today. So one thing to think about is, are you going to do this? Can you now take this lesson, whether you're a youth or an adult, could you do this activity with your friends, with your peers, and could you be teaching them how it runs and how it functions? Something to consider there, and we're hoping that you'll consider doing this recipe on your own time with your family and friends. But with that, we want to thank you for attending Elephant Toothpaste today. We hope that